the hell is MONSTERCROSS? Well, apparently it's this. Genesis have just released the latest version of this monster gravel bike, the Vagabond. Huge tyre clearance, about 1 million frame mounts, it's slack, it's a rigid mountain bike with drop bars. Whatever it is, it's fun as Welcome to First Look, the series where we check out new or interesting bits of tech and give you the rundown on the things that actually matter. Let's get into it. The model we have here is the Genesis Vagabond 20, size small. Steel frame with drop seat stays, steel fork, dropper compatible, 1x12 speed SRAM Apex Eagle mullet thing, 34 tooth chainring and 11 50 tooth cassette. Massive. SRAM Apex hydraulic disc brakes, 180mm rotor on the front, 160 on the rear. Tubeless Genesis wheels with Maxxis Icon tyres, 2.35 inch. Mountain bike tyres.
A quick note before we continue, the bike brand Genesis is actually the in-house brand for a massive UK distribution company called Madison. They have lent us this bike for us to have a play around with it, make this video, and then we are going to send it back to them. They actually sent it to us already covered in mud, so we weren't the first to get it. We're now going to weigh the bike. It has no pedals, no Garmin mount, but it does have some bottle cages on it, which we don't actually think come with the bike. Oh, it's going to have to be saddled, isn't it? 12.83 kilos. We knew it was going to be heavy. It's a steel bike. It's got alloy rims on it, massive tires. It's a brute of a bike, but thankfully it has incredible gear ratios, meaning it is not going to be an issue climbing that. Or at least you're going to get up everything. It might not be fast, but you're going to get up.
The bike in this specification comes in at the price of £2,299.99, which puts this into our Rager Piggy Bank category. It's certainly an outlay, and I imagine it's the kind of bike that's going to be bought by people who've already been cycling for some amount of time. In the Vagabond range, they have one more model at a lower price point, which is £1,799, the Vagabond 10. The main difference here is 2 less gears, less gear range, and mechanical instead of hydraulic disc brakes. That's £500 difference. Quite a lot, but the loss of hydraulic brakes might be a deal breaker for some. It's worth noting that despite being mechanical on this model, the brake calipers are TRP Spires. They're dual piston, so they will close on the disc from both sides. They're more powerful, they should feel better. They're not your average mechanical disc brake. I am sure this steel frame rides beautifully, but I don't know, because the tyres are so big, you can't tell. Everything feels squishy and great. So who is this bike for? 1, people that want to carry a lot of stuff. 2, people who want to rip it off-road but want to ride there and back. Because let's face it, sometimes flat bar is a bit slow and annoying. 3, people who want a hardy frame that's going to last a long time if looked after. 4, people who want a bike with a really relaxed riding position. 5, people who want a frame that can be repaired, perhaps in remote locations with limited tools.
We've done some trails and it was okay. We're now actually climbing some of the trails and it's gorgeous. It's very comfortable. You kind of would expect that with the tyres. Climbing well, it's got loads of gear range. It definitely doesn't feel like a really heavy bike. And I think that's probably because of how good the gear ranges are. Like I can spin through this, no bother.
If you like carrying things, you're in luck with this bike because there's bottle cage mounts on the top tube here. There's one there, there's one there, there's one on the forks, 2 different positions on the forks. And if you got not the small frame, there's even more inside the frame here. So you can fit 3 bottles inside your frame triangle, which is fantastic if you're going somewhere very remote and you want to carry things. Obviously, you also have rack mounts and mudguard eyelets. So you can just put anything you want anywhere on this bike. Good job. I think this bike would come into its element fully laden. Loads of bags on it. Especially with this gearing. Sizes range from extra small to extra large. But it's worth noting here, the 2 smaller sizes, small and extra small, come with 650B wheels, and then all of the rest of the sizes come with 700C. Even the chainstay length changes, so the bikes are specifically designed to work with the respective wheel size. It has a very slack and relaxed geometry. So, if you're choosing a size and you're looking at the stack and reach figures, it doesn't really reveal the full picture. A 69-degree head angle on all of the sizes means that the handlebars are going to be closer to you than they would be on a normal road bike geometry. This bike will be very comfortable for a lot of people. The same stem length, 60mm, is provided on all sizes, sizes. The small and the extra small have a 44cm handlebar. The medium and the large have a 46cm handlebar width. And the extra large has a 48cm handlebar, which is very wide, very wide. I don't know if I agree with this, because tall people don't necessarily get wider. They're often tall and skinny. Need a narrow bar. You can always change them.
Personally, I'm not a fan of the handlebars. They're super wide, which, you know, some people are into. It's just not for me. It just doesn't feel I don't feel very dialed into the front end of the bike. I think if I was touring, it'd be fantastic. Of course, the added benefit, if you are touring, bike packing on a big adventure, you've got a hell of a lot of space to fit some luggage in between your shifters.
What would you put there?
Right now, probably a foot-long Subway.
And a first aid kit.
And why a first aid kit?
This bike comes spec'd with a 180mm rotor on the front, which is absolutely massive and what you'd usually find on mountain bikes. However, in this situation, I can see it being very useful for a laden bike. So if you're carrying 30 kilos, 35 kilos on top of your normal bike, you're going to want better stopping power and better cooling, which will be provided by a bigger rotor. So it's a cool thing to have on the spec. Also nice for stopping in the wet, like it is right now. The livability score of a bike like this is very, very high. And yes, that's a made up word that we're still using. 10 out of 10. It's got normal bar, normal stem, normal seat post. Plus point in this category for the cable discs on the Vagabond 10 because they're very easy to use and service as well. Particularly if you're in the middle of nowhere, you can just bring spare cables with you and repair them in the middle of the desert if you happen to be there. Just remember to bring spares. Even if you had a catastrophic disaster, you can weld steel back together. So even if you crashed and snapped your frame.
There's a thing I find annoying about the gear changes, which is the SRAM Apex is mechanical, it's double tap. You reach the easiest bit of the cassette and you try and shift one more gear, and unless you press it really hard, and yes, it's set up correctly, unless you press it really hard, it ends up going into a harder gear, which is exactly not what you want when you're riding up a climb, particularly a steep climb. So you just, I don't like it.
In terms of market comparison, there's a few other bikes in the same realm as the Vagabond. You might want to check out the Bombtrack Hook EXT. It's £2,649 with SRAM rival. The Fairlight Seacan 2.5. This is the latest version, which has bigger tyre clearance, lots of different build options. Or the Kinesis Tripster AT Plus, £900 frame set with, again, loads of different build options. So there's other things out there in this MONSTERCROSS category. 650B wheels with massive tyre clearance. You can ride over anything. The Vagabond has been fun, Jimmy, but I cannot help but feel that I would have had more fun on a hardtail all day.
Where we are, I agree with you. If I was riding like we did once upon a time from Newcastle to Scotland, which you did on a... Was it? No, that wasn't a full sus, was it?
Yeah.
Was it? You did it on a full sus?
Yeah.
Well, you would have had more fun on the Genesis than that bike. Somewhere I will say it was unbelievably comfortable, and what we don't know is if it's because of the tyres, but they will definitely contribute, is we just did a big descent on big gnarly gravel stone things, and it ate it up. It lapped it up. When it got mountain bikey, it wasn't good enough. On big gravel, it was very good. Climbing as well, it was very good. If I was going to describe this bike in one word, it would be comfortable.
Right, it's cool wall time. I've got the Polaroid. I personally think this bike is cool as it can be. It's a proper hipster adventure bike. It looks great. It's fun. There's obviously some compromises, but it costs £2,300, which yes is a lot of money, but I think you're actually getting a lot of bike for that money. However, I personally do not want this bike, but it is cool. So I'm going to stick it in proper good.
Whoa, 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 whoa. I completely agree with you.
What?
Completely. It's proper good. I don't want it right now. However, if I was going to cycle through the desert, I would want it. So is one. It's a bit weird that all the marketing that they do is centered around Adam Blythe ripping it through trails, whereas I think it is more of a put loads of bags on your bike and ride a really long distance and be very comfortable while doing so. I'll probably get narrower bars. It's proper good. Do we have to give it back? Do we have to clean it before we send it back?